talk about Offsiders Summer Edition, Sunday on ABC News.
I'm a naturally curious person. I really want to know why something happens and how people feel. Working at the ABC feeds that curiosity. I can ask the questions, I can laugh, I can tap into what people are thinking, and really knowing the stories, I can basically be me.
We know who you are. You're ABC viewers.
Look at me, Kim. Look at me. Look at me. What channel is that, Sir Cedric? The ABC.
You look at it closely enough, and there's stains on the ceiling, on the carpet. There's, occasionally it gets flooded, but it becomes your home.
Lovely to have you along with us tonight for the big gig.
I do remember walking into Rippon Lea for the first time. I thought, it doesn't look like a studio to me. There's a kind of rambling sort of building.
Hello, I'm Mike Moore. Welcome to Frontline.
The fact that the whole business of television making was taking place under one roof, that was very special.
All right, tonight's show is a ripper.
It was so important in our lives. It was the window to the rest of the world. This kind of mythical dream factory where all the greatest ideas occurred and people were having the most amount of fun.
Well, this is where so many audiences have stood and waited over the years, often in the Melbourne rain, to get inside and watch a show here at the ABC's Rippon Lea studios. But today, it's something special.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the last episode ever to be filmed in these ABC studios!
On the same scale that cotton farmers are draining the Murray-Darling. I just interviewed Freddie Woodman. I don't think so.
This is the home of Countdown. This is the home of The Late Show. This is where cutting-edge dramas were made. This was an incubator for generations of Australian comedy. This Studio 31 is one of the places where Australia learned to make television.
There is something about the shared experience of being in the same studio that housed the people that you admire, that you think, wow, I've made it.
And it just had such a feeling of this is where stuff that's good gets made.
I grew up watching TV come out of this studio. Australian TV grew up in this studio. No one knew how to make anything when this studio got built. Everyone had to figure it out.
There was a lot of experimentation going on. It was a place to grow and to learn, but it was also a place to make very, very high quality television for the time.
I feel it was like part of my coming of age as an actress.
Mr. Postmaster General, will you please open these studios for us?
Thank you, Sir Richard.
The ABC started on the site in '56, and they started with, there's a little garage over the back here where they were going to park the outside broadcast truck.
Do you know how far it is from the Earth to the Sun? I walked into television knowing nothing, and I said to them, what do I do? And they said, well, you take your piece of paper and you put a line down the middle and you write pictures on one side and words on the other. You again? Oh, you can do something else. You can change the order and the grouping of numbers too. And that was my total instruction about how to make a television program. Well, we'll have to watch that.
'Cause I love you, I love you, I love you.
So the fact that there wasn't a lot of experience and mistakes were still being made, I felt that we were probably at the pointy end of that new movement to make Australian TV better and more competitive.
They were doing dramas and they were doing kids' programs like Adventure Island.
I have not forgotten Peter. Percy. I have not forgotten Pumpkin. Percy. I have not forgotten Paulie. Percy!
It was a great fun show to work on, and it was always shot on a Sunday and a Monday. And Tuesday, Wednesdays, I think, was Bellbird. We knock out 4 episodes of that in a week.
Give us a hand with your rose. Right, now go, oh, yeah, we'll make sure she turns earlier. Jim, we better move the cake, mate!
Studio video shooting that we did in those days was a technique all to itself. Probably a technique that's now forgotten. To have cameramen, scooting their pedestals around a polished studio floor to set up for the next shot while another shot is going on.
You'd do one scene, then move on to the next, and they would just edit it together as they went.
It's like a live performance. You had to know what you were doing.
Hang on. Too early, send him back again, right, stand by again.
And if they fluffed their lines, then you'd have to go back and do it again, and you'd have to push the record button a fraction of a second earlier. And if they did it again, you'd start to eat into the previous scene. And if you went too far, then you had to go back and shoot the previous scene again.
So, yeah, there was a slightly more collaborative feeling between you and the crew.
This is a proper TV studio. It's got a workshop out the back where they build sets. It's got storage where they keep all of the props.
Now, the principle behind the ABC's props department is that nothing is ever thrown out. And when you consider how many decades this place has been going, that's a lot of stuff. I mean, look at this. You've probably seen that on a show somewhere, you just probably can't remember. Missed that show. Definitely had one of these. There's your old phone repository. She's heavy. What were you in? This place solves problems that you wouldn't have even considered. You might have a 2002 Ford Falcon and you might want to turn it into a police car, but there's only one set of these that's going to fit. And this is just one little part of it. There's upstairs as well and all along these corridors. But have a look at this. This is what's left of Countdown.
Everything is in one place, and this was built as a factory of entertainment. The makeup department is right next to the costume department.
I remember there was a wig room, and it was so cool to go into the wig room. It was actually a bit naughty to go into the wig room and try on, which we did a couple of times, after a couple of wines, try on a few wigs. It was great. That's a very happy memory of Rippon Lea, actually. It's so lovely.
They offered the bands, like Skyhooks, selection from the wardrobe department. They wanted them to look great and a little bit crazy if they wanted to go that way.
We would always go to the props department, the costume department, the makeup department, saying, what do you got? Pirate hats or, whatever Australian drama was being done this week that we pitched a bit of costume for. And Rippon Lea was a great resource.
The other thing about the wardrobe department was that it was populated by experts. They used to actually draw their designs and they were beautiful little works of art in their own right, and they'd look at those and the design would come later and the seamstresses would be there. And in the makeup department, they did their own prosthetics.
You have a lot in common, such as an almost fanatical love of the safari suit. True. Yes, sir. Speaking of...
So they didn't farm stuff out because they sort of couldn't. They created the expertise.
It's just reminded me of a joke that I think you might all enjoy.
That was amazing, the makeup that they came up with on Max Gillies. With a cough and a spit too, in 10 minutes flat half the time as well. Yeah, fantastic.
A lot of the set builders became totally enamoured with the natural history unit.
They would make up various sets of things like the Pebble Mound mouse, these sorts of creatures that are nocturnal and almost impossible to get the detailed behaviour of their activity.
For this little creature, a permanent home makes much sense.
We discovered a researcher who had several captive ones. We took it down and set up a little tabletop in the Rippon Lea complex, and before we knew it, it was out building its little pebbles around the entrance to the burrow.
The studio itself is actually really great to make TV in. You can get enough of an audience in there that you get a really good response, but it's not so big that it doesn't feel intimate.
So the big audience shows like The Weekly was shot in here, Studio 31, which is really the heart of Rippon Lea. But it wasn't the only studio, of course. Right next door here is Studio 32. It's pretty much the same size. And when this place was operating at its peak, both of these would pretty much be running full time. You'd have a comedy in here and a drama in there, or a quiz show in there, or an orchestra set up in here. And the whole place was surrounded by this rabbit warren of the business of making TV. Dressing room, audio mixing suite, TV edit room. I don't even know what that is. I mean, you wonder how anything ever actually got made here, because it is so easy to get lost. It's like someone just took bits of TV studio and plonked them on top of each other as they needed the room to move. But of course, some of it's very much purpose-built, like this one. This is my favourite room in the whole place. It's the Foley Suite, live sound effects. And today it's being used for the last time ever. Oh boy, well, certainly looks like it's about to shut down. G'day, Jerry.
G'day, Ben. How are you?
Good, mate. How are you?
Good, thanks. Yourself?
No, not bad.
It's
last
fine.
day.
Yeah. It's amazing. I thought it was the last time I was in here, but I got a call back to do a last-minute show. I came in back in the mid to late 80s. I've always enjoyed my times in here. It's always good fun.
What did you work on in here?
I did Week of My Heroes, Jonah, The Slap, did The Slap here.
Hey, that's enough!
Did you do The Slap?
Yeah, did The Slap. Giant hand clap and a leather belt strapping the concrete.
So what are some of the classics?
Oh, the classics are the coconuts. We still use them today for horses. This is what I used for a handgun.
Oh, yeah.
A cartoon shing, one component of an eagle wing flap. A car crash and you want to augment some of the car crash sound. It's been an institution probably most of my life, yeah. No, it is sad. This is it, no going back.
I think Rippon Lea was a bit like a valve radio. You know, it had things that whirred and glowed and, and all the people in it were amazing. There was no ego. When you go into those other commercial studios, you'd have these big posters of their stars. You'd go into the foyer of Rippon Lea, there were no posters. I mean, you might have had a news presenter going. That was it.
Because it was not a commercial channel, I think it gave artists and writers more leeway to be a bit more controversial, to sort of jump out of the box a bit, which I love.
You know, you had the library to be creative. Rippon Lea was just this amazing, creative people that came together to do arts. And more importantly, in my opinion anyway, we were in a golden age of television telling great Australian stories.
The Sunday Mercury's always been a fighting newspaper, but you ain't seen nothing.
You gonna give me a kiss goodbye?
We'll be fine.
There's no one around.
Yes! Oh, they've a full suit. Those kids could turn vicious.
We're looking for firearms, remember? Let's not get careless. When I was working doing Phoenix, particularly, and Janus, we didn't use any of these Daleks. We took the cameras off the sticks and because we had a cameraman who had trained on football. His name was John Tuttle. And Tutsy was the guy going, we're going to take the camera and we're going to tell this amazing story.
Go! Come on!
They were making really edgy, interesting miniseries.
Okay, we're just going to go through a few tests, see where you're best going to fit into the system. Can you read the top of this page out loud for me?
I remembered reading it and thinking, I loved the character, I loved the scripts, and I thought it was really going to be an interesting piece. And I'm like, who's this guy you've cast opposite me? Jack Human? Who? I've never heard of him. Well, the rest is history. I remember one stage working through the streets of Rippon Lea. A few months in, the show was on air, and we went to the supermarket to get something, and the lady at the checkout said she just looked at us together shopping, just, I knew it was too good to be acting. So we got sprung.
Am I that transparent?
Oh, yeah.
Telling Australian stories, you have to have the artistic freedom to be Australian, which is to be adventurous.
Anyone there?
Don't answer him.
You could tell the difference between stuff that was made in Sydney and stuff that was made in Melbourne. For me, it just seemed more relatable in some way. And it was really the inspiration for me to decide to down tools in the solicitor's office and come to Melbourne was when I saw DGen and then The Late Show.
Virgil, will you come in here, please?
I'm almost here, Dad.
Close the door, son.
And I was looking at these shows with very envious eyes, you know, thinking, man, these guys are a couple of years younger than me and they're doing sort of what I really wanted to do, and I can't let it go any longer.
Hi. I don't normally do this on the McCullough program, but...
I feel ecstatic!
This poll here puts your popularity at just 33%.
Look, we've all got our polls. Take a look at these Nielsen rating figures.
The challenge ahead of this Australian of the Year nominee is enormous.
Gum nut's gone up my nose.
Cat me doing? Do it dodgy!
No one ever said no. You'd come up with an idea and you'd expect it to be turned around in a couple of days. And you'd have a set built for you and, you know, I need to drive a tank onto the set. Okay, sure.
So we did things our way. We bought a submarine. Did Dave tell you about the submarine?
A remotely operated vehicle that could sail under the waves with the killer whales.
Killers are the largest of the dolphins, weighing as much as 7 tonnes.
The people who look after property went insane about it, and I got all these phone calls asking me to make sure that we had a barcode on the submarine. Well, the submarine was actually over in the States, and there was no way I was going to send someone across to put a barcode on a submarine in the States.
We had a developing pyrotechnics department. It was an opportunity for some of the new guys that were going in there to try things out, you know. Jailbreak, for example. Molly knew that was going to be a hit, so I had this idea, let's see if we can actually do this somewhere where we can have big explosions. So we went out to this quarry with this tiny little budget that meant we could only do each explosion once. The art department had built me a set that was to look like the doors of the jail. And the idea was to just blow open the doors like this. So the guys had thought, look, we should just put a tiny little bit more, you know, explosive in there just in case, you know, it just, because we don't want to bugger it up and we can't do it again. So they did put a little bit more, and instead of just opening the doors, they blew the doors off. And there I am standing behind it because I was just ready to cue the guys from the band and Bob was supposed to run out. That's me going...
OH&S then still existed, but it certainly wasn't to the level it was today.
Yeah, it was cowboy days. I had an actual Navy Colt pistol, which was in my holster. I'll be on my way to lunch and think, oh, I've still got the gun. Ah, it doesn't matter. And I didn't, it wasn't loaded, but there I was walking around with a real gun strapped to my hip, going up and ordering fish and chips.
We had a chap from Adelaide at some point come in. We said, what do you do when you're in the field? And we explained to him that we had maybe a dozen porters who carried these extremely heavy boxes of cameras and sound equipment up to the top of an active volcano, and then David and the crew would descend down into the bowels of the volcano to film the land iguanas who really favoured laying their eggs in the hot volcanic soil. And we could see this guy, he was going white. And he couldn't find anywhere in the form to put this information. And he sort of left and we never heard from him again.
Nobody died making Countdown. Well, other than notionally.
Oh, no!
You would always know when Countdown was on because there was this line of young people screaming young girls all trying to get in and you'd be trying to rush your way through to get up to the newsroom.
Oh, yeah, I felt Molly's vibes. Felt a lot of Molly's vibes in that building.
Where are we? Oh, here we are, Ian.
Ian's on the Zoom. Oh, my God.
We were glimpsing the factory for the first time, and I will never forget going up the spiral staircase to the control room.
Lights are up and go.
And at the end of this long queue of technicians is one guy going absolutely berserk.
Coming to 3. Go. Let you come 3 and ride out with the kids in the foreground there. Jojo Zepp on the set.
I thought, that guy's drinking a lot of coffee.
It was fly by the seat of your pants time. I would have 6 cameras on this floor probably, and we were just moving every one of them. Everything was planned, but we knew that we could break the rules, if you like.
And so we'd stand up there and they'd be down there. It's exciting. I mean, TV shows should always be made live because it makes it more exciting.
Take a look at me yesterday.
The famous one with JPY in the middle on a small podium where the kids were grabbing at him and pulling him down and all that sort of stuff. Another time I had Angus in a gorilla suit hiding in the grid. He was in a small cage. And the kids came in, they didn't even know he was here. They didn't know AC/DC was going to be on the show. And Angus drops out of in the cage, drops out of the roof. Like, they went nuts. It was absolutely fantastic.
That's one of the lost clips, isn't it?
Unfortunately, yeah. Unfortunately, I don't know where that one went to. If you think about what has happened in this studio over the years, you can't even imagine the innovation that's come out of this place. That's why it's so, inspiring to us all, and we still love it.
Countdown completely changed the way music was consumed. When we started out, just wanted to crack it in Sydney. Unthinkable for a band from Melbourne. That was just blown away because every one of those dots, those ABC outlets, represented somewhere you could go with your truck and play to them.
Every single Sunday night you were either a Countdown house or a Young Talent Time house. We were Countdown because I had 3 older brothers, so that little box in the corner of the room showed you what could happen to your life if you stepped beyond where you were.
All of the crew here have worked on everything. Like, there are people here that made Recovery with Dylan Lewis, which I just watched every weekend.
Right now, live in the studio, we've got the Foes doing Dogs Are the Best People.
Recovery was a huge thing. They would play every Saturday morning, most likely drunk or hungover.
The time the Foo Fighters were on, or the time that Green Day weren't meant to play on Recovery, but they did anyway, using the house band's instruments. Stories like that bounce around a place like this.
My favourite band in the world at the time was the John Spencer Blues Explosion. I loved them. Somehow I managed to get a seat in the audience, surrounded by a lot of teenagers who had no idea who this band were and what they represented. And they came on set and it all started quite sort of sedately, and I was thinking, this is not normal John Spencer Blues Explosion behaviour. Surely something's going to happen. And did it happen? Oh my goodness. I saw the set torn down. I saw him climb all over everything, and it's actually gone down as one of the most legendary performances ever to happen on Australian television. When you walk into that studio, that big main studio that you know has housed all your favourite shows growing up, walking in there and just the feeling of it.
Miff, just stay there for a second. Both of you guys look at the camera and smile. That's Miff. That is your wedding photo.
It was a very, very busy place. It probably wasn't an ideal place to have a newsroom. It was built right alongside a very busy train track, and the newsroom had the window closest to the train track.
Rattling the windows and shaking dust from the ceilings. You knew it every day. You could almost time your progress by it.
It's currently 15 degrees in the city. Back with more news at 6 o'clock.
So if you wanted to record your voice piece, you'd actually have to wait for the train to go by, and then there'd be another train if it was peak hour. And you'd think, is this story ever going to go to air?
It was noisy, smoke-filled, male-dominated. Film canisters full of cigarette butts, a beer fridge.
The clatter of typewriters and the calling out of voices was absolutely deafening. It had to be done quite a bit ahead of that because of the need to create these long paper auto cues.
The temperature got higher and higher the closer you got to bulletin time.
Tap, tap, tap. like that as people tried to make deadline.
By the time 7 o'clock came around, the line-up producer had generally had 2 or 3 stubbies by then and was not someone to be reasoned with at that stage.
My biggest memory is that it was very male. Most of them seemed to be in safari suits and had moustaches.
And you had to get down 2 flights of stairs to get to the studios. You weren't allowed to use the lift in case the lift got jammed.
And off you'd hurtle from the second floor, the auto cue, everything went down this stairway down to the ground floor. All the way down. My God, it actually seems further. And if you were a woman, of course, you would be in ridiculous high-heeled shoes, shoulder pads, big earrings, the works. And then into, the news studio.
Good evening, Ian Henderson with ABC News.
The thing about working in a place like Rippon Lea is it encouraged a little bit of eccentricity, it seemed.
People will never ask again when
The
they...
shorts. Let go the shorts.
Everybody thinks how cool it is in the studios of the ABC, but believe you me...
You'd finish up your duties of the day and go down to the canteen where they'd open up the sea change bar, Ben.
The sea change bar. Because it was the actual bar in sea change.
Laura Gibson with the beautiful grey-green eyes and the pearly white teeth and that smile that kills me.
Hello.
Hello?
Go home. We'd have special parties at the sea change bar. That was, my mum loved that because I think she liked Diver Dan like everyone else in Australia.
Well, I always judge everything by the canteen. It was a great canteen.
Some, myself included, may have been known to go and grab a beer from the Sea Change bar just to help with creativity.
You know, there are writers there and edgy news.
There's nothing like that there now. Although I am very keen on beer fridges. I think they help every bureau. There was a great camaraderie. Back then, it was almost like a family. You really got together, camera crews, sound recordists, journos in that Sea Change bar and talked the day through. And lots of laughs, heaps of laughs.
Well, these are the new studios. This is the new Studio 31. There's a new Studio 32 just next door. Much bigger, much more technically advanced. Just doesn't have the history. Not yet.
Being one of the last to put a show out of the studio is, I'm quite proud of that. I feel very lucky to be that little bookend on the history of this studio, and it's hard not to feel sentimental about it.
So many people who have created television as we know it in Australia have passed through here.
For me personally, it'll always be hugely important. I think Rippon Lea is basically an icon of excellence for Australian film and TV.
I feel very nostalgic about this place because I've had so many good times here.
Nice shot, over in Studio 31, and in 3, 2...
Well, not coming up because we've run out of series.
The ABC Gordon Street method is the only way I know how to make a program. You make a little family together and then everybody gets involved.
Can we please extend that applause to our wonderful cast. Emily Cullen. It's the last 7 moments that will be in this particular studio. Wow, this is surprising. What are these human emotions? It is really the people in the building that make all the difference, and it's those I want to thank, not only here tonight, but also everybody that we've all worked for, with and for the past 20 years or so. So thank you very much. Okay.
Appreciate for Studio 31. Thank you.
One, two, three, go!
You know, it's often said all good things must end, but it's never really easy waving goodbye to a dear old friend. These ABC studios have been with us for years, and now they take their final bow. Let's raise a glass and say cheers. And so it's goodbye, Rippon Lea, as we remember decades of great TV. The cameras here have captured 1 million scenes. It's true, it really was the factory of dreams.